Hello dear friends, my name is Roy Olsen and I'm your friend. I'd like to bring you this morning or today, depending on what time it is where you are, a brief encouraging message based on the biblical passage Romans 8, chapter 8 verse 28. And that goes like this: and we know that God works all things together for good, for those who love him and for those who are the called according to his purpose. Every one of us in our lives has difficult things happen to us by other people, by our own mistakes, our own sinful nature, or just by the circumstances of life that are very, very difficult. But we have this verse, this scriptural really promise that there is something that we know. It's not something we hope for or think, it's something that we know. And what is that? And it is that God is involved. And for those who love him and are called according to his purpose, and you are called according to his purpose, God is actively involved in doing something. He's working all things that have happened. He works them together, and the outcome is something good, positive, helpful. And I use an illustration for this: the servant and his master, the Persian prince Sahib. The servant loved Sahib and followed him wherever he would go and was very devoted to him, would never leave his side. He just had this annoying habit of saying, "All for the good, Sahib, all for the good." And Sahib put up with that, but sometimes there was a little testing. For example, 3 camels went missing, and Sahib sent the servant to go find them. 3 days later, the servant returns and says, "Sahib, I found the camels, but they're all dead." "But all for the good, Sahib, all for the good." Sahib by this time had had it, and he said, "You really need to cut saying that out. Stop it. And if you say it again, I'm going to make sure that you go into the prison tent. And there you will have nothing but bread and water until you learn your lesson to stop saying, 'All for the good, Sahib, all for the good.'" Well, Sahib was preparing for a trading journey, and he had loaded his camels up with the produce they were going to sell, and he threw a big party for all his friends, and after the food and the frolic, he took them out to show them his skills with the curved Persian sword. He had practiced hard, and he could throw it up in the air and catch it by the handle when it came down. So he was surrounded with all his friends in the desert sand. He threw the sword up in the air, and it went swish, and he caught it by the handle. And of course they said, "Well, can you do it twice?" So he knew he could do it twice, so he threw it up in the air, and it went swish, swish, and thump. He caught it by the handle. They're pushing it now, and they said, "Can you do it 3 times?" Well, he knew he could do it 3 times, but he was playing humble. He said, "Well, I'll try for you, I'll try." So indeed, he threw it up in the air, and it went swish, 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 and thump. He caught it by the handle again, and they went, "Bravo, bravo, great Sahib, great Sahib." And of course, they pushed him. "Can you do it 4 times?" Well, he had never done it 4 times, but because of the peer pressure, he had to try. His ego was at stake. So he threw it high in the air, and it went swish, 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 and slice. It cut off his thumb. He missed the handle. thumb was in the sand. There was blood gushing from his hand where the thumb was. And standing in the periphery amongst the friends was the servant. He couldn't help it. He tried, but he couldn't help it. He shouted out at the top of his voice so everybody could hear him, "All for the good, Sahib. All for the good." Well, Sahib had it. And he commanded his guards to take that servant and put him in the tent and chain him up with nothing but bread and water until they returned from their trading journey. And indeed, after 2 days, when Sahib had healed enough, they left on their journey, and 3 days into the journey, a band of marauding robbers descended upon them. All the servants took off in every direction, and they captured Sahib and all the camels and all that they carried. They took Sahib and put him in their prison tent, and he overheard them saying that the next day they would sacrifice him to their heathen gods. As you can imagine, he didn't sleep well that night, but in the morning they came, got him, and inspected him because they needed a perfect sacrifice for their God. And they noticed that everything was okay except he was missing a thumb. He had no thumb on his right hand. And they said to him, "Go, get out of here. We can't use you. We only sacrifice to our God people who have all their parts, and you are missing a thumb." So you can imagine Sahib took off and headed back towards his village. And on the way he was thinking, wow, that servant. He told me all for the good when I lost my thumb, and indeed, I lost my thumb, but it saved my life. It really was all for the good. So he goes back into his village, and people greet him and mourn with him about the loss of all their products and so on. But he went right to that prison tent, found his servant, and said, "Forgive me. What you said was right. All for the good. I lost my thumb, but it saved my life. It did work out for all for the good." But then he said, "Well, what about you, servant? You languished here all this time in this tent with nothing but bread and water. It didn't work out good for you, did it?" "Aha," said the servant to Sahib. "You see, if you had taken me with you, I would never leave your side. And if they captured you, they surely would have captured me also. And you see, Sahib, I have both my thumbs, and they would have sacrificed me. So you see, Sahib, even for me, it was all for the good, all for the good. And for you, dear friend, whatever has happened to you in your life, by yourself or by others or by just circumstances, remember this, that our God is big enough, strong enough, wise enough, powerful enough to take those things that have happened, and by a process known only to him, he can work it out so it'll be good for you, for your life, for your health, for your future, for your serving him. So remember, all for the good, Sahib, all for the good. God bless you. My name is Roy Olsen. I'm your missionary to Romania, and I'm your friend. God bless you.